Hey, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we are looking at more X-Men with issue number 5. Now in the last video we kind of talked about this, but there was something going on off panel with the psychics Quentin Quire and Psylocke during that issue where Magic and her team were handling outside threats, and so that's basically going to be the bulk of this issue. So this actually starts up in Alaska, where Psylocke is in a cabin after sleeping with John Greycrow, as he tells her, "You don't have to go," and she says, "Yes I do." Why? Because of what I am, who I am. I was made to be a tool, just like you were. A weapon, honed sharp, given a killing edge. That's behind me now. But a tool still needs purpose, and that will always be with me. And that is what the X-Men provide me. You don't have to stay. You don't have to live here alone. Come to the factory, John. And he says nothing, but grabs her hand before she walks away, saying, "I have a psychic rescue scheduled this morning, and I'll be damned if I let Quentin Quire tell me that I'm late." We then jump to the factory in Alaska, where Quentin is already telling her, "You're late." And she goes, "I am on time." To which he says, "Early is on time. On time is late." And they start getting into it, with Psylocke saying out of pure annoyance, "When you finally exhaust my patience, I won't even bother to make your murder look like an accident, because no one's gonna care." And he's like, "Pfft, Sabretooth cut my head off and carried it around in a box. Forgive me if your death threat doesn't exactly have me quaking in my kicks." And then they walk into this lab where Ben is from issue number 2. Cyclops is standing there saying, "Please, do me a favor. Can you not take whatever this is straight into this man's mind?" Kid Omega's like, "No promises, Slim." And he's like, "Don't call me that." And he starts laying out the mission to him. Wake Ben Liu from his coma, stabilize his mental state, and bring back some hard intel on what activated his X gene. And then they go straight into it, descending straight into his mind, and we see this crazy cityscape made purely out of his thoughts, with the alien ships from issue number 2 still flying around, still taking a big presence in his head. They then look around, realizing how weird this is, how bizarre the inside of his head looks, and start walking around, with Quentin saying, "This is weird, right? Like, even for a psychic rescue." And he just keeps going, "So, alien stuff. You think he actually was abducted by aliens?" And Psylocke says, "No, this is trauma. This is just a surface. We need to go deeper." And then this little brain matter that they're standing on is cut through by Psylocke, and they descend, seeing all of his memories on the way down. This was how he was before. He had a life. As a finance guy, Kid Omega says, not much of one, which is really crazy because we saw him as this homeless person, this mentally deranged, like someone that just needed help. Here, you can see he's really successful. Not the happiest, but still living what could be a very gratifying life. So it's just night and day, which makes you wonder even more, how did this happen? Let's move this along, Kid Omega says, as they stand on his shoulder in one of his memories, before sitting in the back of his car as he's driving in one of his memories. Psylocke says, "Where do we go?" "Pacific Coast Highway. This is where it happened. This is when it happened." And we see this weird imagery of an eyeball in the sun that kind of looks like flower petals instead of sun rays. And then we see a flashing light in front of Ben, not knowing what he saw, and then he starts floating in the air. Classic alien abduction, straight to the flying saucer above him. And we see his actual memories play out as he's in this ship, as his clothes are stripped off of him and shredded into pieces, his hair shaved right off his head before he even knows what's going on. His eyeballs are held open by machinery, and a big tube goes straight down his throat, and a huge beam of light shoots straight out of his eyes. We see him on an operating table, completely naked, unconscious, and being experimented on, like something's being pumped into him with the wiring. They tortured him, experimented on him. "Aliens my ass, those are people," Quentin says. "I can't see who they are," Psylocke answers. And then we see someone in the darkness, someone we can't make out, saying, "Hello, ducklings." "It can see us," Quentin says. "This is a memory. How can it see us?" What are you?" Psylocke demands. "I am something left behind," this mysterious person answers. And then she shoots out a bunch of disgusting, like, vomit with maggots and bugs, saying, "Left behind to punish any nosy ducklings who might come looking into 3K's business." And suddenly, all of this vomit is starting to rise to waist height. They're starting to drown in it. It's getting up to their mouths. And Psylocke says, "Quentin, you're too strong. Lou's too weak. If you unleash too much power in here, you'll kill us all. We're stuck." And then Quentin's grabbed by the face, with someone off panel saying, "Well, look who it is. Hi there, boy." And Sabretooth, standing before him, ready to rip his head off again, stays holding him by the throat as Quentin says, "Sabretooth?" And then we see what this looks like in real life, and Quentin is bleeding out of his eyes in agony, before Psylocke says, "Quentin," and then easily getting distracted by a hallucination of John Greycrow, and she starts bleeding out of her eyes too. And Sabretooth is grabbing Quentin by his head now, stabbing into his head, stabbing into his cheeks, drawing blood all over his face. "So smart, boy, so smart. So smart, you should have known I wasn't done with you. Everyone else leaves you, Quentin Quire. Wolverine joined the other X-Men. Phoebe went to New York. Even your own parents threw you away like trash. They could smell the stink of failure on you like everybody else. But don't worry about a thing. Old Sabretooth will never, ever leave you. You'll never get me out of your head. So let's get that head off your your neck and back in a box where it belongs. Which is like, obviously it's not real, but it's sticking with him. Like, that is his trauma actively speaking to him. He's incredibly scared of Sabretooth, so he's making light of it earlier in the issue, but it still eats at him. You know, he's joking about it so he doesn't cry. So it's really cool that we're getting to see a look at his character. You know, if you're not familiar, you don't know much about him, this is telling you everything right here. How he acts outwardly around other people versus what he's secretly holding in. Really, really cool. I love that depth. And back with Psylocke, John Greycrow is starting to hold a gun to his head, saying, "The only thing that getting better means is that we're broken weapons, no longer useful for what we were made for. There's no place in this world for a weapon with no use. You'll see, and then you'll do the same thing." And she holds out a hand saying, "John," but he shoots himself in the head. But luckily, this gunshot snaps Quentin out of it and looks at Sabretooth saying, "Wait, a gunshot? Psychic bleed. You're dead. This is not real. This is all her." And you're like, Psylocke? What did she do? How does she's not controlling all this, surely. And Quentin, just absolutely bleeding down his entire face, starts saying, Psylocke, this isn't real." And she's like, "I can't. I'm not a strong enough psychic to break out of this." And he starts rising in the air, full power, saying, "I know, but I am. I'm strong enough, but if I power through, Ben dies. Like you said, I need someone trained. I need a professional." And they band together as Psylocke hesitates, saying, "Alright, let's make this right." Quentin's bleeding, she's crying, and Cyclops comes into the room, back in the real world, saying, "Quentin? Psylocke? Did you..." "Oh God." And then he sees them with their bloody faces. Psylocke's eyes are bloodshot, they're both bleeding everywhere. And Quentin says, "Ben Liu is awake," with Psylocke finishing off saying, "They're called 3K. The people that did this to Ben, they're not aliens. They're people making new mutants. They figured out how to force activate X genes in abducted flat scans, and Cassandra Nova is one of them. So that person in the shadows, that bald head, is actually her, making her reappearance in comics," which is so, like, such a good reveal, because you had this whole thing, this whole like New Mutants subplot going on and having at least some presence in every issue thus far, and I was like, why are they not touching on this more? Why is this not like more in front of our faces? It's because they were building it up. They were building it up to this reveal. One of the biggest, most evil X-Men villains making her comeback. This is very obviously to be in line with the release of Deadpool and Wolverine. Like, this is kind of an interesting squad. It's also not the most powerful, you know what I mean? So thinking about a villain such as her, right? Like, they don't have Jean, they don't have Professor X, they don't have Wolverine. If they're taking on a threat like her, and Magneto's kind of out of commission right now, it's super interesting how they're going to deal with this threat, because to me that seems like it's going to be a big challenge. But regardless, outside of all of that, this issue was great for Quentin and Psylocke. Like, it was very simple, didn't have a lot of heart to heart, but it didn't really need that considering the characters we're working with. Them dealing with it and overcoming together, using their power as one to save Ben, that's really interesting. Like, I'm really curious to see what Ben is like now that he's going to be awoken, and is he going to be mentally all there? Who knows, right? But I'm very curious to see what they do with him as a character, if he's going to be around for a while, if he's going to be able to come back. But yeah, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and yeah, that is the video. Thank you for watching.